Thank you very much, John. You know, after that fantastic video and some of the speeches, I'm not sure what I can add to what others have said, but sometimes I think there's nothing wrong with a bit of repetition. And I'll try and give it a shot. Tonight's dinner is a tribute, as others have said, not only to Kevin Lynch, but it's also a long overdue tribute to the importance of public service in Canada. And what better way than to honor someone whose whole career exemplifies the very best of public service. Incredible hard work. You know, Heather, you were very lucky that on Christmas Eve he asked to see you on December 26th. It was because his program was full the day before. Incredible hard work, integrity, nonpartisanship, an unswerving commitment to excellence, infectious enthusiasm, and as others have said, a lifelong dedication to Canada. When I sat in meetings in the boardrooms of the departments of finance and industry, sometimes, I'd say particularly during the boring parts of the meetings, I'd look at the pictures on the wall of former deputy ministers, and I'd ask myself what it must have been like to work with some of the great public servants who contributed so much and with so little public recognition to building Canada. The Clifford Clarks, the Bob Bryces, the Simon Reismans. And years from now, others will sit in those same boardrooms, look at the pictures on the walls, and ask themselves what it would have been like to work with Kevin Lynch, because Kevin has always been in the league with the very best. Kevin always said that government is extremely important in society, but to really matter, he argued that governments should focus their energy and resources on doing a few very important things well, rather than spending excessive time, energy, and money on doing a bunch of small things that in the long run don't make a difference. And therefore, as others have said, he focused his energies on putting into practice innovative ideas to make Canada a leader in a modern, knowledge-based, globally competitive economy. He also understood, and this is the flip side of what Mr. Chrétien was saying, that governments can only be successful when a nonpartisan public service and those at the political level work together, trusting and respecting each other. And regardless of the party in power, Kevin always reached out from his end to try to make that possible. And when I was there, I hope I reciprocated. We worked closely during the decade I was the senior policy advisor to Prime Minister Chrétien. We worked very hard, but we had lots of fun. You know, don't be fooled. He's not as serious a guy as everybody makes him out to be. And we formed an enduring personal friendship, which I cherish. Our collaboration began in the early days of the internet. I mean, imagine telling kids right now that we were there before the internet. And through his leadership, and others have said this, as Deputy Minister of Industry, Canada was the first country in the world to connect every school and library to the internet. And then there was his contribution, as John has talked about, Mr. Chrétien and Heather, in bringing about, and Indira on the video, in bringing about a fundamental transformation of the landscape of Canadian universities to make Canada the place to be for leading researchers from around the world. And he was instrumental in shaping all of those programs that others have mentioned, the Foundation for Innovation, the research chairs, the Institutes of Health Research, Genome Canada. Indira didn't mention the Institute for Nanotechnology at the University of Alberta, but it's an extremely important forward-looking idea. And if you combine all that with his role as Deputy Minister of Finance under Mr. Chrétien, and later as Secretary to the Cabinet under Prime Minister Harper, in developing a competitive corporate tax system for Canada, we can understand why Canada is so well placed in the world today. Kevin deserves an enormous amount of credit for that. He also understood how important it is to bridge the gap between the public and private sectors. And he would often get out of Ottawa to meet with leaders in the business community, universities, think tanks, and NGOs across Canada. When he announced his retirement last June, there were more than a few business and university leaders, many are here tonight, who asked, now who can we talk to in Ottawa? It's a very good question, and don't ask me to try to answer it. But it's an urgent challenge for his successors, and frankly for the business community, because dialogue is a two-way street. I'm just going to mention one point. I wasn't around the last few years, but few know that as Secretary to the Cabinet, Kevin made 2 trips to Kandahar, lived in a tent with the troops, shared the danger they face by riding not in helicopters that were offered to him, but in armored personnel carriers, before he felt comfortable making recommendations to the Prime Minister that could affect the lives of young Canadian men and women. And that's what distinguished public service is all about. Now, if you all think that Kevin always practiced what he preached with respect to the critical importance of technology, you are wrong. Very wrong. I remember very well one evening at the Lynches. His wife, Karen, was on crutches, recovering from a broken leg. And she asked Kevin to go into the kitchen and turn the oven on to 350 degrees. About 5 minutes later, a sheepish Kevin came back into the living room and asked how to do that. Gee, if only I had time to talk about the dinner where Kevin turned on the barbecue. The whole thing went up in flames. He had to call the fire department. It sure isn't great for me. I like my steaks rare. But fortunately, unlike Kevin, for whom being a very good father to Aaron and Ken, I know Aaron's here, plus his work was as much as he could handle, Karen was able to combine a highly successful professional life of her own as a teacher and a school principal. Actually, I think roped Kevin into the office a couple of times to paint her office for her. But she was able to combine that with being a good mother and being able to turn on the oven and the barbecue and run the house and much else. And that made Kevin's professional life possible. It even made it possible for him to call a meeting in the office with his senior officials about work-life balance. No. Just wait. It's not. I'm not finished. He did call that meeting, but he called it for a Saturday afternoon. And I'm sure there have been many times when Karen has thought of the words of Prime Minister Pearson's wife, who said, "Behind every successful man is a surprised woman." And so I hope tonight we can pay tribute to Karen Lynch as well as to Kevin. Thank you. Now, let me introduce the next speaker for a moment. A visionary, a passionate believer in science, research, and innovation, a man who has branded Canada by putting advanced Canadian technology on the map in every country in the world, and literally in the pocket of the President of the United States, the inventor of the BlackBerry, the founder and co-CEO of an incredible Canadian success story, Research in Motion, Mike Lazaridis.